You guys know what we need to do to help solve this behavioral condition in our country. I'm going to talk about how exactly do we reach people and how do we get them to elicit some of these behavior changes that everybody knows will have a positive influence on their health. Today's talk, for me at least, is called Reaching the Human Spirit. And I'll have to say that I don't know everything about this. And let's keep that on the down low, because I think as of 7 o'clock last night, my wife pretty much thought I knew everything about everything, or that's what she told me at least. So, but I'm still trying to find my way in how do we reach each and every individual that's in front of us. 85% of individuals in all stratifications, healthy and disease conditions, who begin a new exercise program quit by the 12th week. What that means to me is that individuals in my industry, we're failing miserably at getting people active. How do you motivate persons? Now you have a patient in front of you and they're an unexercised individual, and maybe they have that new diagnosis of some sort of cancer, and you're trying to reach them. And you saw my statistic, 85% of people who start a new exercise program quit by the 12th week. This is very interesting. In cardiac patients, okay, newly diagnosed cardiac patients, 85% of new diagnosis cardiac patients in all stratas of cardiac disease make it to 24 weeks. So that means only 15% of those cardiac patients, they have the fear of God in their eyes. Oh my goodness, I had a heart attack, or I'm having a bypass. I need to stay with diet and exercise. So 85% of them hang on to that 24th week, which is twice as long as the Joe Q public. But then after 24 weeks, something interesting happens, that 50% of them drop off the map within 12 more weeks, within 3 more months. So I always ask myself, what's going on there? What happens with these individuals that they were so motivated early on that they beat that statistic of 85% dropout rate, but then they start feeling better. They start to forget the look in the eyes of the family member. They start to forget the fear of death. What is it that happened in that individual that makes them, after the 12 weeks, throw their success away? And I'm not quite sure about that. But that's one of the reasons why I use certain types of anecdotes, and I use a certain approach to my teaching to try to reach people at a greater level. And I've pretty much convinced myself that I'm never going to get 100% of people to stay past 12 weeks. But if I can turn the 85% dropout rate to 50%, then I can sleep at night and I can know that I did a good job. So I have a very education-intensive approach to my work. I don't say, take my word for it, you should exercise, because we already know that. I already saw a lot of nods when I asked that question. I try to teach people, why should they exercise? What happens to the blood vessels in your muscles, in your heart, in your neck, in your brain when you exercise? What happens to the muscle cells in that type 2 diabetic when they do aerobic exercise, when they do resistance exercise? Now, a lot of people sometimes say to me, oh, I don't need to know that, just tell me what to do. And I still beat those messages down their head, because I think I'm trying to empower individuals to understand why I should get out of bed on that day where I don't feel like it, versus just take my word for it. And I think it falls under the auspice of some of these anecdotes that I listed, in that if you give a person a fish, they eat for 1 day. So if I tell somebody to exercise and do this right here, and I'm standing right there in front of you, they're going to do those 20 sit-ups or 20 push-ups on their knees or whatnot. But if you teach a person to fish, they can eat for a lifetime. If I teach a person why they should do those squats, or why they should do that 20-minute walk every day, and what happens when they don't with regards to their risk for cancer or heart disease or diabetes, why should I do that? What have you seen, Jason, at your workplace that makes you so sure I should do that? We see people disappear every day, and we know where they go. And it doesn't have to be like that. So my educational intensive approach really falls under the guise of empowering individuals to make their own decisions, because we need to do that as individuals. We're strong-minded Americans, remember that. There was a gentleman who's had a big impact on my life, even though I've never met him, but I read a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. Who's read it? Power of Positive Thinking? Who wrote it? Norman Vincent Peale, right? And I can't really remember too much verse of it, but the one thing that I remember is that if you take the T out of can't, then you can. And that's as basic and mundane as I think that sentence needs to be, or that message needs to be. I am constantly hearing, I can't do this, and I can't run, or I can't walk, or I can't. There's 1,000 things I can't do. I can't eat a piece of bread without taking an injection of insulin, but I don't get caught up in that, right? I can't go a day without insulin, but I don't get caught up in that. I'm focusing on the things that I can do. I can still live a life and wait till my 5-year-old graduates high school. I can do that. I can walk my 5-year-old when she's hopefully 35 down the aisle. You know, I can do that. Those are the things that I can do. And I'm starting to get fed up with all of the can't that I hear in our culture, in the work. Let's focus on what we can do. I mean, you know I'm never going to make it to the Olympics. I can't get into the Olympics, but I think I can run the Rockin' Race in May. I can do that. Let's get ourselves and those people, those patients in front of us, to focus on what we can do instead of what we can't do. And that's a very simplistic message that, to me, you take one letter out of a word and it changes it in 180 degrees. So it's like one letter, big deal. But changing your outlook, that's huge. That's everything. That's where your and your patients or your patient population's success resides. It's in changing your outlook.